June 19, 1944, the Philippine Sea. A vast blue expanse of tropical water lies deceptively calm. Beneath the surface, a steel predator prowls USS Cavala, one of America's most modern submarines. Above, a floating fortress, the Imperial Japanese Navy's Shokaku, pride of the carrier fleet that had once struck Pearl Harbor. Two machines, two philosophies of war. In a few hours, their fates will collide, and one will vanish beneath the waves forever. Before the war began, Shokaku symbolized Japan's naval perfection, fast, elegant, and deadly. Commissioned in 1941, she and her sister ship Zuikaku were the twin hearts of the WWII, the first air fleet. Their decks launched the planes that crippled the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor. For 2 years, Shokaku fought in every major carrier battle, Coral Sea, Santa Cruz, and the Eastern Solomons. She survived torpedoes, bombs, and relentless attrition. Her decks became both runway and graveyard for Japan's best aviators. But by mid-1944, Japan's naval power was crumbling. The empire that once dominated the Pacific was now bleeding from 1,000 cuts, fuel shortages, industrial collapse, and a new, invisible enemy beneath the sea. USS Cavala was barely a year old, a Ballo-class submarine, 311 feet long, crewed by 85 men. Built in Groton, Connecticut, she carried 6 forward and 4 aft torpedo tubes. Her sonar could track a convoy at 7 miles. Her radar could detect aircraft before they could see her. She was designed to hunt without mercy, strike without warning, and vanish without a trace. Her captain, Lieutenant Commander Herman J. Kostler, was 35, calm, analytical, and patient. He had studied Japanese fleet movements for months. Now, in June 1944, Cavala lay in ambush southeast of the Marianas, ordered to shadow and strike the Japanese carrier task force if sighted. In his control room, red lights glowed dimly. Periscopes dripped seawater. Men spoke in whispers. Every sound, every vibration could mean discovery or survival. Japan's naval doctrine was built on the decisive battle, a single massive confrontation that would annihilate the U.S. fleet. But by 1944, that dream was gone. American industrial power had shifted the balance permanently. The Imperial Navy's training system, once the pride of the Pacific, had collapsed. Fuel rationing meant young pilots flew only a few hours before combat. Maintenance crews worked with no spare parts, patching aircraft with bamboo and scrap aluminum. The Shokaku now carried pilots barely out of school, men brave but unprepared. Their mentors had died over Midway, Guadalcanal, and Rabaul. The sea was still blue. The decks still gleamed. But the spirit of the Imperial Navy was fading. On June 18, 1944, American codebreakers at Pearl Harbor intercepted a transmission. A Japanese task force, including Shokaku, Zuikaku, and Teiho, was moving north of the Marianas. Their target, Admiral Spruance's Fifth Fleet, which was invading Saipan. The battle that would decide the fate of the Pacific was about to begin. At dawn, Cavala picked up distant propeller sounds, rhythmic, heavy, metallic. Her sonar operator leaned in, multiple screws closing fast. Kostler ordered a periscope sweep. Through the narrow lens, a vast gray shape cut the water, a carrier, flanked by cruisers and destroyers. The hunter had found the prey. Kostler's orders were clear. Shadow the enemy. Attack only when certain of identity and position. He trailed the formation from periscope depth, recording bearings every 5 minutes. The sonar ping of Japanese destroyers echoed like a heartbeat across the control room. At 11:48 hours, Cavala was in position directly ahead of the Japanese line. Kostler turned sharply to port, waiting for the carrier to close within firing range. "Set depth 10 feet, he ordered. Torpedo data computer, bearing 340, speed 19 knots, range 1,200 yards. Fire when ready. 6 Mark 14 torpedoes left the tubes in sequence. Fire 1, Fire 2, Fire 3, Fire 4, Fire 5, Fire 6. Seconds became minutes. Men counted silently. Then a low rumble. A rising roar. 3 explosions tore through the hull of the Shokaku. A column of black smoke rose skyward. Inside Shokaku, aviation fuel ignited instantly. Flames raced down the hangar deck, consuming aircraft and crew alike. A second explosion rocked the carrier, as bombs and torpedoes stored below detonated in a chain reaction. Damage control teams fought desperately. Bulkheads sealed, pumps roared, men suffocated in compartments sealed to save the ship. For 30 minutes, Shokaku listed heavily to starboard. At 14:08 hours, a final explosion split her open amidships. She sank bow first, dragging more than 1,200 men with her. The sea swallowed the pride of Japan's carrier fleet. Above the wreck, oil burned in silence. But Cavala's ordeal was just beginning. Japanese destroyers turned toward her position immediately. Pings, pings, ping. Sonar pulses closed in. Kostler ordered take her deep. The submarine plunged to 400 feet, then 500. Depth charges fell in clusters, each detonation shaking the hull, cracking gauges, and throwing men from their stations. Air grew thick with diesel fumes and fear. For 3 hours, Cavala endured 106 depth charges. Not one found her. By dusk, the destroyers moved away. Kostler surfaced after nightfall, sent his contact report. Shokaku sunk by Cavala, 2 or more hits confirmed, all hands safe. Above the waves, the carrier battle raged on. American F-6F Hellcats annihilated Japanese aircraft in what pilots called the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. 3 Japanese carriers were sunk, hundreds of planes destroyed. The Imperial Navy's air arm ceased to exist in a single day. Shokaku's loss symbolized more than destruction. It marked the end of Japan's offensive power. From that day, the empire would fight only to delay the inevitable. Weeks later, U.S. intelligence confirmed Cavala's kill through intercepted communications. The sinking of Shokaku was both a tactical triumph and a strategic turning point. Her destruction meant Japan had lost one of its last experienced flight decks and maintenance crews. Each lost carrier was more than steel. It was an entire air force, a generation of knowledge. Even if new ships could be built, new pilots could not. In naval reports, Admiral Spruance later wrote, "The submarine service contributed decisively to the destruction of Japan's mobile fleet. Their patience, their precision, and their silence became our greatest weapons." By the war's end, American submarines had sunk over half of Japan's merchant fleet and a third of its warships. They were only 2% of the U.S. Navy, yet they inflicted the majority of Japan's naval losses. For their role, the men of Cavala received the Presidential Unit Citation. After the war, she served as a training vessel, a museum ship, and finally a memory of the silent war fought beneath the waves. Her periscopes now point toward the sky, not in search of prey, but in remembrance of those who never returned. History remembers the loudest guns and the brightest explosions. But in the Pacific, victory often began in silence. In the heartbeat of sonar. In the patience of men who waited in the dark for the right moment to strike. USS Cavala's 6 torpedoes did more than sink a ship. They sank an empire's illusion of invincibility. If you found this story of precision, silence, and courage compelling, subscribe to World War II Memoirs for more forgotten battles, hidden missions, and true stories of war beneath the surface. because history's greatest victories are often the ones no one heard.